Hello, everybody, and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Zozo DFS Tactics show. Not quite as long as of an intro as last night, but just a reminder that the golf tournament this week, the Zozo Championship, is played over in Japan. So all outright bets, sportsbook bets, and DFS lineups, at least to DraftKings. I can't speak to the other contests, Yahoo, FanDuel, anything like that. But for DraftKings lineups, those are due by 7:30 Wednesday evening. That's 7:30 Eastern. For those of you living in the United States, I would recommend sooner than that, 6:30 Eastern, just to make sure that everything goes the way you need it to. So, adjust your schedule accordingly tomorrow. It's unfortunate that normally the DFS Tactics show that I do is having to be moved up at night, but you adjust accordingly. You make do. So, other than that, the usual intro. All statistics are provided by Fantasy National. It's a wonderful resource. It makes an idiot like me look like I'm fairly smart. I won't even go beyond fairly. Chat is open. Join me live, or if you're not watching live, comment below. What do you want to see? What do you want to look at? Especially tomorrow, since we'll have some time during the day. Feel free to reach out, or on social media. Which, reminder, the links are, there we go. There it is. Reminder that the links are in the description. Just reach out if you have any last minute questions on ownership, or any last minute thoughts, who might be a pivot, who's a fade, and all that stuff. But with that, let's look into our strategies for the 2022 Zozo. And we're going to start as we always do. Let my camera get focused in here. This is the data model that I ended up with, and it's going to look pretty similar to last night's, although I did make a couple of changes. So, if we recall, I had about 12 to 13 kind of metrics that I was kind of playing around with, looking at, and I think I've ended on 9 towards the end of the show. This is 9 as well. I went ahead and upped the total percentage of strokes gained total on short courses to 10%, because we know this is going to be very, very short. We saw it in the yardage. We saw it as we went by hole preview. It's going to be a short course, so I really wanted to see who takes advantage of those short courses. 5% of strokes gained total no cut. Who plays these no cut events well? It led to some success at the CJ Cup. Rory is going to be a favorite no matter what, but certainly for DFS, it led to some surprising success when you're differentiating some areas of the price board. Anyone who's followed me for any time at all knows that I just prefer approach or iron players the most. Let me make sure I got Chad up here. That's what I prefer. It generally leads to longer term success, or it's an indicator of longer term success. I had mentioned last night that I was playing around with birdies on easy courses, bogeys on hard courses and such, because I don't have a feel for whether this will be easy or difficult. All we saw from the data last night was a tournament in 2019 where it played to about average. I went ahead and did kind of an umbrella statistic called opportunities gained. And an opportunity gained is defined as a player who is on the green in regulation or the fringe that's still within 15 feet within the hole. So if a guy has a eagle putt for that's 15 feet away from the cup, whether it's on the fringe or on the green, that counts as 2 opportunities. So it's a bit of a more of an umbrella statistic as opposed to birdies gained, bogeys avoided, and so on and so forth. But I still wanted to see who, gives themselves the opportunity, especially over since you're guaranteed 4 days. You're gonna need to get your points, your birdies, and your possible eagles for DFS anyway, some way. So I really thought that this might be the best way to just kind of value that, but because I wasn't terribly confident in it, I just put 5%. I know it was a metric I was wanting to see. I didn't know how I wanted to go about doing it, so I put the umbrella kind of statistic on it and put it at 5%. Greens in regulation. And last night you'll remember that we were debating, or at least I was debating, on whether to put it just regular greens in regulation, or if I wanted to see, or if I wanted to add this difficult to hit the fairway metric. Last night I didn't have it in the data model in the part of the filter. I added it today, and a lot of it is because we'll come over here, and this is the results from the 2019 tournament at Zozo at the same course. I wanted to get a look at this here, and as I really looked into it, so let's take for example Sungjae. Sungjae missed the fairways more often than not, or at least relative to the field, but he still gained greens. So even if he was missing the fairway, he was still hitting his greens, which is fine. He finished third, and he's a good player. But the opposite, let's take Jason Day. While he was hitting his fairways, he was missing his greens. So you'll notice here, miss fairway, hit green. The highest is third. You have a third, an eighth, a 13th. All of these guys were still doing the same thing. They were missing their fairways, still hitting the greens. And you have all of these higher finishes than the top guy who would hit the fairways and miss the greens. So clearly greens were much, much more important than hitting the fairways. And if the fairways are going to be difficult to hit, then you want to see, even if they're difficult to hit, who can still hit their greens in regulation. Essentially what it boils down to, in my mind, was who needed the fairways to hit the greens. Meaning if they missed the fairway, who was exponentially more unlikely to hit the green in regulation. And that bore out some interesting results, and we'll get into it here in a little bit with the full statistical model and when we switch over to Microsoft Excel. But I really thought that was telling when the 7 players there were 7 players who missed the fairways more often than not, or at least according, relative to the field, and still hit the greens, were higher than the highest hit the fairways and missed the greens. So I thought that was pretty telling. That is why I added the difficult to hit fairway metric on this greens and regulation statistic. That's why I added the filter. I put that at 10% because I know how important the greens are going to be. We saw that the par threes were really, really important. Last night in the Data Dive show led to a lot of high finishes. The par threes and a lot of the par fours as well. So I put both of those at 15%, even though the course breakdown had the par fives. It had par threes and par fives equal, but there was a hidden bit there where the par fours really indicated a top of the leaderboard correlation. So while I do factor in the par fives, I only did it at 10% because when we dug into it, it just didn't bear out as much as you would think, at least by the graph or by the chart. And then the one distance that I felt was the most compelling was the par threes 175 to 200. that's the one statistic I really felt, or I shouldn't say statistic, one yardage, what's the word I'm looking for? Yardage, area yardage, proximity yardage to the hole, whatever, that really, really spoke to who played that week well. And, it's only one tournament, so it could be vastly different this week. But since we only have one tournament to go on, that's what we have. And I put that at 10%. It's arguable you could put it at 5 and whatnot. I just put it at 10% because I felt it was a pretty strong correlation. Now, when we move to Microsoft Excel, you'll see that I included the par 4, 350 to 400. I have the par 5, 550 to 600 ranges in there. They're just at 0%. I wanted to look at them, but I ended up using them at 0. Not using them in figuring the statistical rankings. So with that, that's the explanation behind the full data model that I use. You come to your results here, and I've still got Johnny Vegas number 1. He was number 1 last night. He's number 1 now. I think this is going to suit Johnny Vegas pretty darn well, given that he is generally pretty good off the tee. His approach play has been improving to the point where it's very good relative to this field. He hits his greens. Even when he misses the fairways, he hits his greens, clearly. He's number 1 in the field in that. He devours par 5s. He gives himself a lot of opportunities. Now, he doesn't play what is this? This is the no-cut event. He doesn't play them the best, but I am hoping that this will level out considering all of the good/elite statistics around it. So you got Johnny Vegas, Xander, Will Z, and Colin Morkawa are my top 4. Please note that Paul Casey has withdrawn. I have him starred just because I go through and star about the top half, trying to get the ownership projections. But I'm going to actually unstar him. Just note that he has withdrawn. So if you have him in your lineups, make sure you take him out. The other player that I know for a fact has withdrawn is Jimmy Walker. And you can see I didn't really have to worry about marking him. He was so far down in my data model. But I know Jimmy Walker is withdrawn, and I know Paul Casey has withdrawn. So those are my top 4. Then Keegan, Kyle Stanley, Chris Kirk, Maverick McNealy, Hendrick Norlander, and technically Doug Gim round out my top 10. The one kind of outlier I'll say here is Maverick McNealy, where his approach play has not been good lately, but he still comes into the top 10 because of some other very good statistics, mainly the par 3s. He plays these par 3s really well, especially at the distance that is that was most correlated to success in 2019. He gives himself a fair share of opportunities. He's really darn good at the par 5. So if you're good at the par 5s and the par 3s, that's recipe for success, considering the par 5s are supposed to be the easiest. And the par 3s are supposed to be the hardest. So if you're taking advantage of the easy and the hard holes, then you have to, just kind of plod along on your par 4s. And it's not like he's a disaster there either. He plays the short courses pretty darn well. Really darn well. He doesn't need to hit the fairway to hit the greens in regulation, which is surprising considering he's so bad with his strokes gained approach. This would be adding this difficult to hit fairway metric might have skewed his data a little bit and said that he's not very good at greens at all. When in fact, he doesn't need the fairway to hit the green. So therefore, you shouldn't knock him too much on the approach. So I wanted to highlight that one outlier here. He's the one that's in red. Now, you have your elite ball strikers here at the top. Johnny Vegas, Colin Morkawa first. Paul Casey would have been up here. He's second. Stanley third. Fourth. Fifth is down here. So this is the kind of, I guess, ordering that I would have expected, considering my inclination, my natural preference to iron players. But it was kind of striking to see how high a lot of these players are, considering I use other metrics. And the one outlier is Maverick Mcnealy. But let's go to a DFS pointed view. And give me one moment. I'm just going to make sure I've got all my settings going here. Yeah, looks like it. Okay. And again, guys, if you're live with me watching, feel free to jump in chat. Want to hear what you all are thinking, a little bit further away from the start of the tournament than we normally are on this show. But still want to hear about, do you have any strong opinions? Do you know any of these Japanese players that, there's not a lot of information on? You can see here, there's just not a lot of information, at least with Fantasy National. Is there any information you have? I would love to hear your input. So let's look at the 10Ks here. The top of the leaderboard, you've got Colin Morkawa, Xander Schauffele, Will Zalatoris, Hideki, and Tommy Fleetwood. Let me bring over the projected ownerships here and make sure chat's still up. So right now, there are 4 extremely chalky plays and 1 clear pivot. And I don't think it's going to take too much figuring out to know who the one outlier is here. Of the 4 main guys that are being used, you have Colin Morkawa, number 1 at a little over 24%, and he's the number 1 projected ownership player as of now on Fantasy National. And you can understand why. He's just one of the best players in the world. He's coming off a second at the CJ Cup, where in any normal event, 24 under, if it doesn't win, is ridiculous. You just had Rory, who was just one shot better. And Rory had the benefit of playing. He was still on the course when Colin Morkawa was done, because that course is so easy. If you have more holes, there's a chance you're just going to get more birdies. Whereas the opposite is true. If a course is very difficult, you just want to get done, get it over with, and let make the others beat you. Anyway, so Colin Morkawa, the highest projected ownership. I'm not gonna say that's a pivot or anything like that. I mean, 24% is a lot of ownership. If you want to eat that chalk, I don't blame you if you do. He's number 4 in my data model. I mean, even the top 3 here, you got 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. The top 3 in my data model. I mean, it's a top heavy field. What can you say? It is. It's a top heavy field. My statistical models generally don't like Hideki, but this is a home game for him. He finished 2nd here in 2019. He is at 21%, so if there's ever a reason you wanted to fade Hideki, at least compared to the other 3, that would be one of them. He is 3rd among these 4. All of them are at 21% or over, so there's no real pivot among these 4. The clear outlier is Tommy Fleetwood, and he's only ranked 45th. He's at 6% ownership, and I want to make a case for Tommy Fleetwood, even though I don't have him start. These metrics are based on performances, of the PGA Tour, which, 90 to 95% of those events occur in the United States. And Tommy Fleetwood, for whatever reason, has not played well in the United States. His game has not translated well over stateside. But he is a world-renowned player. He's one of the best on the European Tour. And the thing with Tommy Fleetwood is, internationally, whether that is when they play the WGC Mexico, whether they play over in Abu Dhabi, in Asia. He's generally very competitive. And a lot of that, in Paspalum, like we talked about last night, Paspalum tends to be slower green speeds, and that's true to where he plays a lot in England. They have a limit of how fast their greens can get because of the wind and just the nature of those courses. So he generally putts slow greens pretty well. I don't know if I can truly get behind using Tommy Fleetwood, but there is certainly an argument that can be made that if you want to take the pivot in this area, you can. We don't have the Paspalum putting statistics, but I have a feeling Tommy Fleetwood, this could be a decent Tommy Fleetwood week. You see, I mean, he plays well, whether it's easy, average, difficult, whatever. He generally plays better in the wind. Now, he's never been a great putter, but he's not terrible either. And his irons are getting better. His iron play is getting better. Now, he was fairly poor at the CJ Cup last week. But he's generally known as an iron player. So, for example, let's take a look at WGC Mexico. Now, the recent form hasn't been great. Let me make sure you all can see this here. That's not what I wanted. There it is. Yeah. So the recent form hasn't been good. 44th, and remember, this was stateside. This was at Congressional. So remember that. And his putting was just absolutely atrocious that week. But his irons have always been pretty good. Now look here when they actually played internationally in Mexico. Top 20, top 20, top 15, second. He is a force internationally. So if there's ever a reason to take this, oh shoot, I didn't want to do that. If there's ever a reason to believe in Tommy Fleetwood in a PGA Tour event, this would be it. This would be it. Again, I don't know how much I'm going to get behind Tommy Fleetwood, just because this is the area of the chalkboard. There you go. It's the area of the price board that I don't mind eating the chalk. It just seems everyone's gravitating towards here. Minus Johnny Vegas, who we'll get to here in a bit, who's number one. I mean, you can't argue. Second, third, fourth in my data model. I mean, even fifth would have been up here if he hadn't withdrawn. So at some point, you just have to stick to your data model and use what you have. Let me bring up the expected ownerships. Still, again, make sure chat's up. So yeah, there's a look at the 10Ks. I mean, again, any one of these three is fine. If you want to take the narrative of the home game for Hideki, I'm not going to argue with you. He finished second here last time it was played here in 2019. My models generally don't rate Hideki very well. Anyway, I just wanted to point out, Tommy Fleetwood, that there is an opportunity here that if you take Tommy Fleetwood and it is true that he just plays his best game because it's international, you're going to gain a lot of leverage on people. He's at projected 6% ownership. That is quite a pivot. That is quite a pivot. And especially in a field, in contests like these where it's a guaranteed 6 of 6, you have to find your uniqueness. There you go, right off the bat at the top of the price board, Tommy Fleetwood. Let's move to the 9Ks here. You've got Neiman. So, yeah, make sure you all can see that. You've got Neiman, Ricky Fowler, Alex Noren, Siwoo, Eric Van Rooyen, Keegan Bradley, Maverick McNealy, Cameron Tringali, Mariano Grillo, and Mackenzie Hughes. Sorry, I know I keep looking off. As I'm switching views on my other monitor over here, it kind of minimizes the chat and other things. Looking at the 9Ks, there are No real chalk plays. There's a lot of people that are around this area of the price board, but it's either they're either dabbling here, say maybe going, maybe one in the upper tier, one in the 9K tier, and then building out their lineup from there, or they're kind of eschewing, forgetting this area of the price board altogether. The highest projected owned player in this area is Maverick Mcnealy at 15%. That's not a lot of ownership in an invitational or in a WGC style event. So it seems like most people are just they might be dabbling in this area here, either taking a McNeely, taking a Keegan Bradley, and then working their way down, or they're just, missing this area altogether. So let's go through it. So that at the top here, and somebody I kind of like this week is Joaquin Neiman. He is sitting at 14% projected ownership. Again, he's not a true pivot. I think if some guys or some contestants are in this area here, the Tommy Fleetwood, Neiman Fowler area, then I think they're probably just trying to find a little bit of money and work their way up, is my guess. But I like Neiman this week. He generally doesn't play the bar fours the best, but in these no-cut events, he's pretty darn good because he's a very darn good player in general. He plays short courses really, really well. He doesn't get enough credit for his length, but he is long enough, but he's also a good enough iron player. At least not, he doesn't show it relative to the field, but he's a pretty darn good iron player that, he can lay up. He can have these forced layups and still compete. Plays the par threes extremely well, hits his greens. There's just a lot to like here with Joaquin Neiman this week. And sitting at 14%, yeah, I like it. I like Joaquin Neiman this week. Let's see. There's two true pivots in this area of the price board. It's Siwoo Kim. He's less than 5% owned, and he was doing okay at the CJ Cup and then really fell apart on Sunday. But I still can't get behind Siwoo Kim. Now, yes, he generally plays short courses well. He plays these no-cut events generally pretty well. But he just hasn't been good lately. He just hasn't. And I've always been a fanboy of Siwoo. I have that FOMO effect, fear of missing out on him when he goes and wins a tournament. But he just hasn't been good lately. The Sanderson Farms, he was fine. The Fortinet, he was fine, but I shouldn't say fine. Top 10 and almost a top 10 is pretty darn good, but those were weaker-ish fields. You missed the cut at the Shriners. The CJ Cup, he was really bad. I think he finished next to last. He was just awful. He was second at the Wyndham, but again, middling performance at the BMW, which was 70 players. He was 30th. Missed the cut at the Northern Trust. WGC St. Jude, another invitational style field that's pretty elite. He was really darn bad. 17 strokes with on approach. What are you doing? Are you hitting pitching wedges from 250 yards out? Good Lord. It's just been bad for Siwoo lately. So I can understand why he's a pivot. I can't recommend Siwoo this week. The other pivot is a little surprising. It's Cameron Tringali. Now, he generally rates well in my models because he's a statistical darling, we'll say. He's going to be okay this week, I think. You see here, he's the best on these short courses in the field. He takes advantage of his par fives. I like Tringali, and I really like him knowing that he's a pivot. But there are better players and plays in this area. But being that much of a pivot, I'm going to have more exposure to Cameron Tringali than I think I would normally, all other things being equal in this field. But those are your two pivots in this area. I guess I should include Mackenzie Hughes. He's also, he's at the bottom end of the 9K, but he's also a pivot at 5%. and some change percent. I've got him start. I started the top 30. He happened to be 30th. Don't really have any strong feelings against, strong feelings for or against Mackenzie Hughes. He's just kind of there. If I'm at Mackenzie Hughes at 9,000, I am either trying to save some money somewhere else and get up into here, or I am trying to bring him down and get more money elsewhere. But again, it's mainly around this. I mean, he's not very good with his irons. And if you're not very good with your irons, you really, really need to be a good putter. And he's just generally, I mean, he's a very good putter in general. I just have my doubts. His off the tee game's bad. His approach game is really bad. I don't know how much around the green's going to play. I just don't. So if it's an around the green game, style tournament, then he could be okay. But I'm just afraid of this. I'm afraid of that. The off the tee game is going to matter. You can see, I mean, he hadn't gained strokes off the tee of any measured rounds only once, and that was at the Northern Trust. I imagine he gained off the tee at the Open, but we don't know. But yeah, it's been bad. It's been bad for Mackenzie Hughes. So yeah. Let's see. Let's talk about Ricky. Ricky played well. He played well last week at the CJ Cup. Is Ricky back? I don't think so, but he's certainly trending in the right direction. If his putter doesn't betray him on Sunday, especially on Sunday, but mostly the entire tournament, then I think he wins that tournament. But the fact that he was even leading after round 3, competing after round 3, says something. It really does. Oh, sorry. Let me check. Yep. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I don't see it for Ricky. I just really don't. I really don't. Noren, I like Noren. He is at 12%. Yeah, okay. Keegan, we talked about McNealy, we talked about Tringali, Griot. All of these guys are hovering between the 12 to 14%, which again aren't pivots, but they aren't chalky. So if you find the guy here that really goes off, and top fives or whatever, that's where you might be finding your uniqueness enough, but it's well on your way. If you are like me and you're around this area of the price board, then you're gonna have to find your uniqueness elsewhere, and this will help you a little bit in the uniqueness area, in this area right here, but you're gonna have to find some elsewhere too, which we'll get to. But this is the first start in that if you gravitate towards the upper end of the price board like most people are. In this range, I like Keegan quite a bit. He is at 14.5%. McNealy, we talked about, he's at 15%. Tringali's only at 8 and some change. So, yeah, I like Tringali enough. Griot, I think my best play around here is probably Keegan. Par 5s are going to be an issue. Like if these are birdie fest par 5s, there might be an issue. But he's generally a good enough iron player. He's a good enough par 3 and par 4 player that I don't think the par 5s are going to be his demise. He might not have the upper end finish that some of these others will, but he definitely won't. It won't be enough to hurt your lineup, I don't think. I think Keegan's a pretty decent play this week. I like Tringali. I like Griot quite a bit this week as well. But I think if I had to rate it in this area of the price board, be Keegan, then probably Tringali, only because of the pivot factor of him being 8% owned. So Keegan, Tringali, Griot, McNealy, and Hughes, I think is how I would order that. And again, I'm pretty high on Joaquin Neiman this week. I really am. I've dabbled with some teams that are starting at Neiman, trying to get trying to avoid that chalk up there. It gets pretty hard to do it, just because the kind of team you have when you're starting with Neiman is it doesn't look like it has the star power it would need to win a big contest. But I've certainly been toying around with it. Let's move into the 8Ks. You got Johnny Vegas, CT Pan, KH Lee, Ortiz, Hoffman, Griffin, Palmer, Shank, Kirk, and Matt Wallace. There are 3 absolute chalk plays in this area, and everybody else, there are a couple others that are semi-used, and then everybody else in this area is a pivot. The number 1 player in this area is quite clear. It's Johnny Vegas. I'm not the only one here that's probably got him rated really high on their rankings. We talked about it when we started, right after the data model. He just rates out really well for this type of event. He's the best at hitting the greens, even when he misses the fairway. His irons are darn good. Generally plays these par 4s well, which means he gives himself a lot of opportunities. While his game is best off the tee, which you would think it is best when he's on long courses. He's pretty good, on these short courses because of his iron play. His par 3s are pretty darn good. This is just going to be a good event for Johnny Vegas. Now, if you're starting your lineups with one of the big, I'll say the big 3 or even the big 4, if you're starting your lineups with one of the big 4 and then jumping all the way down to Johnny Vegas, well, you're setting yourself up for a lot of 4v4 because that's real chalky. That is real chalky right now. I can't blame you for doing it. If you're going to do a double up, absolutely do that. But if you're trying to, finish in the high end of these massive contests, I can't recommend it. Because you're going to be setting yourself up for a 4v4 a lot. If you go, say, Xander and Vegas or Will Z and Vegas. Vegas right now is the 5th most owned projected ownership, and the first behind the top 4. These 4 are the highest projected ownership, and then Johnny Vegas. So, obviously, he's number 1 in my rankings. I'm going to use some Johnny Vegas. Right now, he's sitting at 21%. Actually, he is now tied with Will Zalatoris in expected or projected ownership. So, that tells you how many people are on Johnny Vegas here. I'm going to use him, but I might have to curb it just a little bit just because of how popular he is. The other 2 are right behind him, CT Pan, KH Lee. I kind of like KH Lee this week. I kind of do. I don't know if this is the Asian narrative. KH Lee, South Korea, CT Pan, I believe is Chinese Taipei, I think. I don't know if that's the Asian narrative. They're rated out fairly well in my model, but in a normal event, these guys are just kind of there. I don't know. 17th and 18th respectively. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I think I would probably prefer KH Lee to CT Pan. But if they're at this high of ownership, in between 18 and 19%, I'm okay just letting it go. I am. I'm okay letting it go. So, yeah. If I'm in this area of the price board, I'm saying F it. I'll take Vegas and eat the chalk. Carlos Ortiz is interesting. He's at a little over 9%. He's another one of these players like Abraham Answer. Not the longest off the tee. Pretty darn good with his irons. Pretty good at short courses. This could be an interesting week for Carlos Ortiz. I don't know if he's going to outright, win this tournament. But I think he's going to be sneaky good. I would certainly advocate using Ortiz over these 2 just because of the chalk versus pivot play. If you're getting 9% here and you have 19% here, I think Ortiz is well worth the. I don't think the skill gap is going to be. Honestly, I think Carlos Ortiz could top 5 as much as these two guys. I do like KH Lee quite a bit this week. CT Pan kind of boggles me why he's up so high in the projected ownership. I do like KH Lee this week, like I've said, but if you're in this area of the price board, either F it, take the chalk and Johnny Vegas. I don't mind Ortiz. I really don't. Let's see. The other kind of semi-chalky play in this area is Adam Shank. And I can see why. I mean, he doesn't have any poor statistic. He's not the best with his irons, but I mean, he's not bad at any one thing. So that's probably going to play fairly well here at Accordia. But being at almost 17%, like for example, Chris Kirk, I've got him rated higher. He's $100 less, and he is projected at 12%. You give me 5% less on Adam Shank, 5% projected ownership. I've got somebody who's rated even higher on my model. Now, yes, par 5s are an issue, and if this course truly plays the way that graph did on the course breakdown, then that could be an issue. But give me Chris Kirk all day over Adam Shank right now, if these ownerships end up being correct. But yeah, so I mean, you got Adam Shank at 17%. Everybody else is either a pivot or slightly, slightly average owned, I guess is the best way to put it. The biggest pivot around here is Ryan Palmer at 6.5%. I can see why. I do not want any part of Ryan Palmer this week. I do, like I said, Vegas is number 1 in here. It's number 1 in my data model. I don't like the fact that he's so widely owned, but at some point I'm gonna have to make some lineups with him. He's number 1 in my data model. I do really like Chris Kirk. I do like Ortiz enough because he is a pivot. I am going to use some KH Lee. Lanto is, sure. I don't have anything, no strong feelings for or against Lanto. I mean, if the par 3s if this is a par 3 contest, then Lanto is going to be pretty good at it. He struggles at the par 5s. That's what my issue is. I mean, it rates out okay here, but he just doesn't give himself a lot of opportunities. So, that is my take on the 8s. Let's go to the high 7s real quick. High 7s, low 7s, and then I'll hit on some 6Ks before we head over to Microsoft Excel and try to make some lineups here. The upper 7s: Luke List, Garrick Higo, Robert Streb, Brandon Grace, Harry Higgs, Hendrick let's stop at Harry Higgs. So very few in the upper 7s. Actually, let's just cover the entire 7s. Normally this is the most priced people, or has the most people in the price bucket. So Luke List, Higo, Streb, Grace, Harry Higgs, Norlander, Brendan Todd, Pat Perez, Munoz, Matt Jones, Kanaya, Steele, Straka, Gim, and Hoagie. So the guys that I've got started here, like Luke List, putting is always going to be an issue for Luke List. He's a darn good ball striker. He plays these par 3s really darn well. He hits his greens. He's just not a good putter. And that really, really scares me. I mean, he's so high on this list because no putting is factored in. If putting was factored in at all, he would drop fairly precipitously very quickly. Because, I mean, it's close your eyes bad. It's close your eyes bad. So yeah, anytime I'm having to depend on Luke List is frightening. But if putting's not that important this week, hey, I'll probably have some Luke List, and I'm just gonna anything I make off of lineups that has Luke List in it, I'll call it a bonus. Put it that way. I'll have some with Luke List, but it scares me. Brandon Grace kind of killed me last week, but I mean, statistically he rates out okay. again this week. Okay. No strong feelings for or against. He is at 7.5%, so he is a pretty big pivot. Yeah, again, I just no strong feelings for or against. Higgs, yeah, I know he's very popular. He had a pretty darn good week last week, but generally speaking, he hasn't been all that great lately. I mean, the Shriners was mediocre. He missed the cut at the Fortinet. Again, a fairly middling BMW. But he did end he ended the season fairly well at the Wyndham, then parlayed that into a top 20 at the Northern Trust. But I mean, you go back a little bit before then. I mean, since late May, he wasn't good. He wasn't good. I mean, there was a 2.5 month stretch there where he just was not good. And then he's found a little bit of form here. Is he back in form after the CJ Cup? Maybe. I'm gonna have to see it one more time to believe it on Harry Higgs. And a lot of it comes here. I'm just an iron preferred player, and he's not been very good with his irons. Not in the last 36 rounds, at least. Somebody I was really high on was Hendrick Norlander this week, and it turns out that it seems like a lot of people are. He's at 15.5%. So I understand why you're using him. He rates out pretty darn good. I mean, he's a very good ball striker. Generally doesn't play short courses the best. The par threes can be a little bit of a struggle, but hey, he's very good at the par fives. He gives himself opportunities, hits his greens in regulation. I mean, I can understand Norlander. Absolutely. He's the chalkiest around this area of the price board. Let's see. And like I said, that's at 15.5%. Somebody basically right under him I like is Pat Perez. I like Pat Perez quite a bit this week. And the fact that you're giving me 12% on Pat Perez as opposed to 15 plus on Norlander, sure. I've got them rated basically side by side in my data model. Yeah, give me Pat Perez this week. Yeah. At least over Norlander in majority of circumstances. Steele, mediocre. He's a true pivot at 6.5%. Somebody else I like this week a lot is Doug Gim. So you've got my 10, 11, and 12 all in this low 7 range. Doug Gim's at 11% ownership. Somebody else people are gravitating towards is Tom Hoagie. Okay, yeah, I can kind of see it. I mean, he's not afraid to go low, and when you give this guy guaranteed 4 rounds, he can go low with the best of them. Yeah, I can see it. I really can. Generally plays these short courses fairly well too. I don't think Tom Hoagie would be a bad play, but he's at 13%. So I would advocate using Doug Gim at the same price, just because of the lack of ownership. But if you believe in Tom Hoagie, there was a question last week. Who's the kind of players that you think benefit the most in these guaranteed 4-round tournaments? And I mentioned Siwoo just because you give him enough days to kind of get it going. He's going to have one of those days where he just goes bonkers and 8 under, gives yourself that the bogey free round or the 3 birdies in a row streak. Tom Hoagie's the same way. Tom Hoagie really is the same way, and at 7,000, I can understand why somebody would be playing Tom Hoagie. I don't think I'm going to get there. I like Gim a lot more this week, but I can see Tom Hoagie. Let's cover the 6Ks very quickly. I just want to highlight a few guys before we head over to Microsoft Excel. The person I love the most down here is Kyle Stanley. We talked about him quite a bit at the data dive. 3rd in his irons. Greens, he plays these par 3s very well. He actually gives himself a lot of opportunities for the lack of off the tee game he has. I like Kyle Stanley a lot this week, and he is only at 9% ownership. I'm going to ride or die Kyle Stanley this week, I think. I was hoping he would be, 12, 13%. He's 9%. and the fact that he's such a great ball striker on a course that looks like it suits ball strikers, oh yeah. Oh yeah, give me Kyle Stanley this week. Chan Kim, don't have a lot to say about him. However, if people aren't aware, he generally plays pretty darn well because he comes over in these bigger events. You know, at the Open Championship, made the cut, was positive. U.S. Open, didn't play well. I mean, he almost top 20 the PGA this year. The WGC Congressional, he was, 35th. For somebody who a lot of people might not know, and he's getting better. That's the point. He is getting a lot better. You know, Zozo in 2019 wasn't great. Now, he didn't play very well in 2020 either, but you can see down here, I mean, he had a lot of red, and now he's starting to get better. So Chan Kim is somebody to kind of, keep an eye on this week. If you're in this area of the price board, take a look at Chan Kim. Kramer Hickok is somebody that I've kind of been, kind of using in and out. I don't have strongest feelings about him, but, nothing for or against. Hoshino, kind of the same way. He's played enough to where we have at least some amount of data on him, mainly from the Sony and the Zozo. He's one of the Japanese players there is a little bit of stats on. That's why he's rated out higher than others. I don't know how great I feel about it, but. And then lastly, if you are really trying to hammer the stars and scrubs approach, if you're trying to fit two of the top end guys here, then take a look at Wesley Bryant. Now he certainly has his pitfalls. He's he's priced at 6,000, the minimum, for a reason. He generally doesn't play the shortest courses very well. He can get pretty bad if he's wayward. But Wesley Bryant, I don't think a lot of people realize that he is a pretty darn good golfer in his own right. I know he's more known for being a trick shot artist, but when you look here, now he hasn't played since mid-May. That could be an issue. I'm not aware of any injury history. So if he is coming off injury, then you would want to be extra careful with it. But I mean, the RBC Heritage, top 25. The Valspar, which is a very difficult course, played okay. Byron Nelson, you played okay. Off the tee is bad, so if he gets wayward, it could be a little problematic. And these fairways are difficult to hit, so there's definitely ways for Wesley Bryant to just not play well. But if he at 6,000. At the literal minimum, I think he's worth a gander if you are gravitating towards these pure stars and scrubs approach. I really do. Hey, Brian, how you doing, pal? Don't get home till late. Yeah, no worries. I mean, like I said, it is what it is, especially since this is such a difference since they're playing over in Japan. I can't. Any advice that I would have given tomorrow night would be way too late. So, it is what it is. We have to make do. But yeah, you actually just caught me at the end of my kind of run through of the price board. But we're definitely going to come over here now and take a look at Microsoft Excel. Give me a second while I transition over here. And these are my rankings for what I just covered. And these percent ownerships are, what time is it now? It says 9:55 Eastern. These are probably around 8 to 8:15 Eastern, so obviously these will get updated consistently. I just had to have something in here for you all. As always, if you need, if you want some updates tomorrow before you finalize your lineups, reach out on social media, comment below. I'll get to them as quickly as I can for you all. So let's kind of take a look here. I'm going to keep the projected ownerships up over here, mainly because I want to see the price stuff. do note that Paul Casey has withdrawn, and that's why I have him highlighted in red. When I try to sort by price, it's one of these Microsoft Excel situations where these cells, oh shoot, I did it the wrong way. Largest to smallest. These cells, like Jimmy Walker here, these cells are hard, kind of hard-coded, formatted. So it just kind of gets lost if I were to sort it by price. So I just keep it this way. Again, I mean, he's so chalky, but I just can't pass up Johnny Vegas this week. Oh, that's something I was going to see. Let me make sure you all can see this portion here. You can see almost all of it. Let me scroll over just a bit. Yeah, there you go. We're missing the strokes gained approach column here, but I do want to highlight the 4 statistics that I was kind of playing around with. I ended up going 0% on them, but I definitely looked at them while gathering the data and so on. Mentioned last night that we don't have any strokes gained putting at all from this tournament in 2019, and we don't have past Palom green data really much at all because it's mainly international. But for what we can do is a strokes gained total on guys who have played these past Palom courses. And I put it at 0% quite simply because there's a whole lot that goes into strokes gained total. It is not just past Palom greens. But it is worth looking at in the sense of, okay, like Emiliano Grillo. He's international. He's Argentine. Generally have some past Palom greens. For whatever reason, Maverick Mcnealy has played well on past Palom greens. Does that mean he putts well on past Palom? I don't know. I can't tell you. But for whatever reason, he has played those greens well. Vegas, again, another international. Shoffley, he's just a good player. First is Carlos Ortiz. That makes a whole lot of sense. Being a Mexican, born player, I'm sure he's been exposed to past Palom greens. Hideki over in Japan. So generally speaking, the internationals have better looks at past Palom greens than the Americans. Again, that didn't factor into the rankings, but it's certainly something to think about when you're comparing two players. Might be a handy tiebreaker if you need to. Then, the short par fours, there was a pretty strong correlation. Again, I just felt like the par threes led to a stronger correlation, but certainly wanted to look at the par 4 links. Both of these were pretty. There was some correlation between them. And the par 5s, again, 0% in it. I just kind of want to look at it. Let's do the tiers contest for those who play tiers. And again, I don't play tiers all that much, really at all. So I can't really speak to the best strategies. All I can go by is, where I think you might gain some leverage because a tiers contest is so limited in scope. Tier 1, we've got Xander, Colin Morkawa, and Hideki. I would go one of these two. I don't think I could blame you for any of the 3. I really don't. Hideki obviously rates the lowest in my statistical model, but he generally does anyway in mine. I think if I had to pick one, I would go Xander just because he's so consistent. I know Colin Morkawa was coming off the second last week at the CJ Cup. Xander's just so darn consistent. I mean, Colin Morkawa is too. I would go between one of these two, and really, I don't blame you for any of the 3. I got nothing for you on this one. Tier 2, Will Zalatoris, Joaquin Neiman, Alex Noren, Eric Van Rooyen, Tommy Fleetwood, and that's it. So, in a tiers contest, I'm out on Van Rooyen. I think I'm out on Alex Noren. We talked about Tommy Fleetwood and how much of a pivot he is in Classic. I don't know how much that's going to pertain to the tiers contest, especially since you don't have to factor in pricing. It's just you pick a guy in a tier. With that being said, I think he's going to be probably a pivot in this area. I imagine most people would go Will Zalatoris, and I probably would too. If I had to choose one lineup for a tiers, I'm probably going so far as Xander, Zalatoris, I guess. I don't want you to overlook Tommy, and I think I would take Joaquin Neiman if I was trying to build the optimal tiers lineup, because I like Neiman a lot this week, and I don't think he's going to be nearly widely as owned as Will Zalatoris in a tiers style format. Tier 3, Keegan, Maverick McNealy, Cameron Tringali, Ricky Fowler, Siwoo Kim. I'm clearly out on Siwoo. We talked about Ricky. He's showing signs. I'm starting to believe a little bit in Ricky. It's kind of hard yet. I'm torn on Ricky. I want to believe in it. I really do. But I think he's further along in the believing it or back to himself than Harry Higgs is in the proving it. I mean, Harry Higgs had a really good week in the CJ Cup. I still need to see a little bit more from Harry Higgs before I jump on that bandwagon. I'm a little bit closer to the bandwagon on Ricky. The fact that he didn't putt well, which is normally what he's known for. Now, his irons were pretty good. His off-the-tee game was great. Again, I'm starting to get there, but especially in a tiers contest, I'm going Keegan or McNealy, even Tringali before Ricky. I think I would go Keegan. Tier 4, Chris Kirk, Mariano Grillo, CT Pan, Carlos Ortiz, Charlie Hoffman, Garrick Higo, and Ryan Palmer. Well, clearly I'm out on these three. For me, it comes down to Chris Kirk, who struggles on the par fives, but otherwise rates out really darn well. I don't mind Ortiz, but to me it comes down to Grillo or Kirk. I'd probably go Grillo. Probably. In a tiers format. But I think it's one of these two. Tier 5, Johnny Vegas, Adam Shank, Luke List, KH Lee, Lonto Griffin, Mackenzie Hughes, and Harry Higgs. Well, I talked about Higgs. I kind of need you to prove it. The overwhelming chalky play is going to be Johnny Vegas, and I'd probably choose it. I've talked about how I'm scared to rely on Luke List because of the putting. Shank he's chalky in regards to classic style lineups. I don't know how chalky he would be in tiers. I like KH Lee this week. Griffin's okay. I would have to go Johnny Vegas. What's up, Darnell? Yeah, it's we'll get there here in a second. I mentioned when I was going over the price board. I've started some teams at Joaquin Neiman. It's really hard to fade it. It really is. I've dabbled with starting some teams at Joaquin Neiman. Just to finish up the tiers here real quick. Doug Gim, tier 6, the last one. Doug Gim, Pat Perez, Brendan Steele, Chesson Hadley, Doc Redman, Sepp Straka, and Takumi Kanaya. Well, I'm out on all four of these. So for me, it comes down to really basically two players. If you want the pivot, what I think is a pivot for tiers, I don't really know, is Brendan Steele. For me, it comes down to Gim and Perez. I like both of them. Flip a coin. Flip a coin on those two. So that's the tiers contest. Let me hide these columns here for you all. And let's get into building some lineups here. Kanaya, Kinoshita, Hoagie, Vegas, Gim, and Kirk. Okay. I like Gim. I like Kirk quite a bit. I talked about Hoagie a little bit. If in a guaranteed 4-round event, Hoagie is not afraid to go low at all. You're giving him guaranteed 4 rounds. Yeah. I like Tom Hoagie a little bit. Absolutely. You're gonna have to forgive the ignorance here. What's a super draft? I should know this, but I just play classic contests. I haven't done. It's a multiplier system. Gotcha. Okay. I gotcha. Is that through like DraftKings and such? Yes, this is a no cut. You are guaranteed 4 rounds. This is just like the CJ Cup from last week in that regard. This is a no cut. Kinoshita. I don't know anything about Kinoshita, I don't think. Pretty popular, huh? Yeah. Well, there you go. I kind of stick to my guns on the DFS. I know classics. I have played tiers in the past. It wasn't for me. I do a little bit of showdown. I'll do some captain's mode, but I have never done snake, and I've never done snake drafts and super drafts. So let's try building a couple of lineups here. Well, if I joined, then I would probably be paying you off. Then that's what I'll tell you. A lot of dummies, a lot of ignorant people. Well, I'm going to keep that pool at one less person. I think I might dabble in it, but I just don't know enough about it. I'm so focused on the classic. I appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. I would. It'd be fun. I'm always looking for new style of contests, but yeah, I enjoy the puzzle of building a classic lineup with 50K and whatnot. You're taking Morkawa. Yeah. I don't blame you. I mean, honestly, even Paul Casey, he would have been 5th if he hadn't withdrawn for me. One of these guys here I don't think you can go any wrong with anybody. Xander, Wilsey, or Colin. Now, again, I preface it all. Hideki usually doesn't rate well in my models anyway. I can understand why you would want to use Hideki. Home game, he finished 2nd here in 2019, all that stuff. For me, if I'm going to eat chalk and I'm going to go up this high in the price board, I'm going to get somebody who's a lot more safe, because Hideki has quite a low floor, in my opinion. Now, yes, he could go and win, absolutely, but he's got such a low floor, I don't know if I'm willing to take that risk on the floor, especially since all of these guys are widely popular anyway. Now, if Hideki was perhaps a pivot, then that would change my idea. But with these guys roughly, and I'll say roughly, in between, and it's, according to Fantasy National right now, in between 21 and 24% ownership, these 3 plus Hideki, which I'll highlight. So these 4 guys are all roughly the same ownership. If I know that, or if I feel Hideki has quite a bit lower of a floor, then why take that risk? So for me, I'm wanting somebody that's pretty safe, especially since I'm paying so much. Now, who's the safest? That's up for debate. I would think that Xander's probably the safer, only because he's consistent. You pretty much know what you're going to get. He had a pretty bad CJ Cup. That's not like Xander. Now, the upside play would probably Morikawa. He was 2nd last week. His game will translate almost anywhere it goes. I think for consistency, you want Xander. The upside would be Colin Morkawa. I'm probably going to use quite a bit of Will Zalatoris, even though he's, yes, in this kind of same chalky area. He's a wild card. He's got a lower floor than these two. I don't know if it's as low as Hideki's. He's certainly got a lower floor, but I don't know. It's one of those gut feelings, I guess. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, and You all can be the first to call me out when I have a pretty bad one. But I don't know. I've got a pretty strong feeling on Will Zalatoris this week. I really do. But I mean, to your point, Darnell, like, yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong when you ever pick Colin Morkawa, especially in a no-cut event. He's not going to kill you. I like Xander just because of the consistency, but yeah. So let's try to build what looks like to be a fairly chalky lineup here. Fairly chalky. And again, this is according to Fantasy National. The highest owned player right now is indeed Colin Morkawa. He is at 24 and some change percent. It looks like guys are either willing to take one guy in the 9Ks or they're jumping all the way down to Johnny Vegas. And that, I mean, you got the fourth and best in my statistical model for what that's worth. But this is already really damn chalky. We haven't even filled out 4 people, and we are estimated at a 7.5% shared lineup with people. We've only got 2 of our 6. That's pretty atrocious. You're setting yourself up for a 4v4 against a lot of people, and you just, it's hard to win that way, is what I'll say. But again, coming back to this kind of like chalky view, it looks like people are going in some kind of route like this. Kinoshita. Kinoshita. He's at 5.5%. What do you know about Kinoshita? Because I don't know hardly anything on these guys. Let's see. Where is Kinoshita? I would have thought he would have been in here. Yeah, the problem is I don't have it sorted by price just because of the conditional, whatchamacallit. He's 4 top 10 in his last 5 events. Is that on, oh, there he is right here. Is that on the Asian Tour? Do you know? 4 top 10s in his last 5 events. Ryosuke Kinoshita. Yeah, Asian Tour. Okay. Let's come back here, and I apologize. Give me 1 second. We'll come back to the webpage focus, and let's see what information we do have on Kinoshita. Here. All right, so he's only played 3 events. They were all, well, he did make the cut at the Open. He did make the cut at the Sony. Looks like he's a pretty decent putter. Again, just because of the lack of data, he doesn't rate out well. But 4 top 10s in his past 5 events, huh? That's very interesting. That's good. That's good information. That's information I just would not have. That's good. I'll have to. But to be less chalky, no, absolutely. No, I agree 100%. Absolutely. This is the kind of information when as hopefully as I build an audience, I build some viewership that we can share this kind of information with people. Now, obviously, we're trying to win ourselves, yes, but this is why I do this, to try to help you all out. How owned is Takumi Kanaya? Kanaya is at. Oh, he's actually one of the more expensive ones. He's listed at 8, a little bit over 8%. A little bit over 8% as of right now. Yeah. Sorry, I meant to come back to here. And that view probably messed with you all. Let's finish out this quote chalky lineup, and then we're we're gonna build some some pivots. Price for Kanaya is 7,100, 7,200, 7,200 at projected 8% ownership for Kanaya. Let's see if people are going this route, they've probably done these three guys. Looks like probably Adam Shank he's getting a lot of love lately. That means we have 65 per. Hoagie's been getting some love. For whatever reason, people are gravitating towards Sung Kang down here at the bottom. I don't have Sung Kang at all anywhere. Get me away from Sung Kang. But for whatever reason, maybe it's the Asian narrative. I don't know, but he's at 12% right now. So if people are coming down this far on the price board, they're generally going to Sung Kang. I can't get there. I just can't get there. But this looks to be a quote typical or pretty chalky lineup. You can see we're already at 15.3%. We still have 6,700. 6,700 is what Andrew Putnam, Sam Ryder. If guys are using them, so that's a fairly chalky looking style of lineup right now. If people are, maybe they're taking out KH Lee, they're willing to go say like Vegas, and then maybe all the way down to Adam Shank. Leaves 77 per. Like, I don't know. Hendrick Norlander's getting a lot of love right now, which honestly I understand. Yeah, Gim. Oh, I love Gim this week. I do. I love Gim. So right now, like 8,000. Like this looks to be a fairly chalky. Gosh dang it! If I could type. This looks to be a fairly chalky. I mean, yeah, 17%. There's no way I would play this lineup. No way I would play this lineup. It's 17 projected ownership. Yeah. So let's build one of these unique lineups that I keep talking about. You mentioned Kinoshita, and I'm gonna have to look up how in the world you spell his first name. Ryosuke Kinoshita. Yep. Vegas at 89. Actually, Vegas is the fourth projected most ownership in the field. Yeah, I mean, I love Johnny Vegas. I'm going to have some of him. But if I do that, I know that I'm going to have to find some uniqueness and take some chances elsewhere. Yeah. So let's use this Kinoshita. I'm going to use Will Zalatoris because I've been gravitating towards him. And again, I'm doing this only in the argument of let's try to find some pivot. I understand that he's not a true pivot, but to the rest of this price board, he is slightly. I'm only going to use Zalatoris. You can use Morkawa. You can use Xander. You can use Hideki. I'm going to use Will just in this one example. Somebody else who I've really kind of liked gravitating towards is Keegan Bradley in this mid nines. I mean, he's at 14.5, sure, but I mean, he's rated 6th in my model. He does not have a lot of bad statistics here. Keegan's win equity? Yeah, you're probably right. Let me bring that over here for you all to see. Keegan's one of those safe plays. I like pairing Keegan because he's pretty steady, he's pretty consistent with a wild card like Zal. Like, yeah, his win equity might be low, but like I said, he's to me he's the wild card in this area. So I like pairing him with somebody who I feel like is just solid and stable at Keegan. I just feel like Zalatoris is a wild card, like you said with Kinoshita. I mean, Kinoshita is a true wild card because we don't have a lot of information on him. So yeah, I don't know. I just, like I said, yeah. Like I said, you and I can differ. There's nothing wrong there. I mean, yeah, in a perfect world, Colin Morkawa would be 18% ownership, and I'd throw him in like I did last week on almost, I won't say every lineup, but a lot of them. It was weird last week. I don't want to hammer on last week as we're trying to build lineups for this week, but Rory ended up being like sub 10% ownership, and when I downloaded the CSV files for the contests. Oh boy, you can't. The dance that I was doing Thursday morning, seeing Rory McIlroy at less than 10 or 11% ownership, I was excited, and then he ends up winning the tournament for the outright bet. It was great. I'll probably never have a weekend like that again, but it was. This is something that I'm hoping kind of happens. Maybe not with Will Zalatoris, but maybe Xander. Somebody gets forgotten in this area. Clearly, right now, people are forgetting about Tommy Fleetwood. And I mentioned earlier in the show that Tommy Fleetwood, if there were ever a week to use Tommy Fleetwood, it would be this week. And the reason being that his performance over stateside, over in the United States, has been pretty well documented to be bad. I don't think people realize how good he is all around the world internationally. He competes well in Abu Dhabi. He competes well over in these Asian events and Mexico. For whatever reason, his game just doesn't translate well to the United States so far. I think this is going to be a week where Tommy Fleetwood might surprise some people. And the only reason I'm mentioning it, because he's so low in my rankings, the only reason I'm mentioning it, he's at 6% ownership. If you are willing to take that risk, and it's a risk, absolutely, it's a risk. If you're willing to take that risk and it hits, you are gaining so much leverage on the field if you're willing to take that bet on Tommy Fleetwood. And I think he's better than the 45th that I have in my rankings. And again, I can just go by the stats that I put in according to Fantasy National. It's how it rates out. I think he's better than 45th. Is he as good as Hideki or even like a Ortiz or Griffin or Grace? I doubt it. But if you give me 6% less ownership, like I take him over Eric Van Rooyen. I hate to say it, I'd take him over Ricky. So I just want to throw that out there, that if you're really looking for leverage and you have money to play with, take a look at Tommy Fleetwood. I'm not advocating using, just take a look. Let's keep working on this fairly unique lineup here. Zalatoris, Keegan, and again we'll make a couple here. We'll make a couple, so that way you don't have to look at Will Zalatoris much longer, Darnell. Somebody else that I've kind of gravitated towards, you mentioned him, Doug Gim. We're gonna put Doug Gim here. We might change where he is, in relation to our price board. Actually, just looking at that, we can go Doug Gim here. We still have 8,400 to play around with. Somebody I like is Carlos Ortiz. I don't mind Carlos Ortiz. I really like Chris Kirk. If you use Chris Kirk, you have 8,800. It's chalky, but like CT Pan, or if we can find 300, you could go up to Grillo, who I don't mind this week. If we bring Chris Kirk down to somebody else that I can kind of see, I like Norlander's chalky, but I still like him this week. I like Keegan. There we go. Cameron Tringali. I don't mind Tringali this week. I know he's rated lower than the others, but at 8.3%, that's a fairly unique play. Then if we go Chris Kirk here, gives us 9,000, which is Mackenzie Hughes. I don't like Mackenzie Hughes, but there's a makings of a fairly a fairly unique lineup, at least better than that 17% monstrosity we just saw. You got Scott Vincent. I don't know anything about Scott Vincent at all. Nothing. I'm intrigued by your... Can I look him up? I can. I'm intrigued by Kinoshita only because of what you mentioned. Let's see. Scott Vincent. Let me switch over here to the webpage view and then bring up Fantasy National. Scott Vincent. I believe he is minimum or close to it. Scott Vincent. There he is, 64. Scott Vincent. So he has not had a registered PGA Tour event since 2018. And again, I can only go by registered PGA Tour event. I can maybe see if he has some Korn Ferry stuff, but I doubt it. PGA Tour, Korn Ferry. Scott Vincent. Yep, got nothing. Got nothing. So, wild card. I mean, the literal definition of wild card. You hear rumblings, huh? I hear rumblings all the time. It's probably my stomach, though. I jest. I kid. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. That's the thing with Fantasy National, and it's my disclaimer, is that as much as I love this tool, it makes you better. Everything about it makes a dumbass like me look like I know what I'm talking about. It certainly has its limitations in the sense that, in this regard, it can only integrate rounds that are by shot link. It doesn't give you overseas stuff, which is fine for me. If some guy that's unknown or doesn't have a lot of data beats me, I accept it. I won't kick myself going, well, I should have known Kaita Nakajima was going to play this event well. That is me accepting that portion of it, because you have to accept something as, you just get beat if. Last week, I was going to get beat if Jordan Spieth top 5'd. And it looked like he was going to, and then he went typical Jordan Spieth and blew it on Sunday. Well, he didn't blow it. He shot like even par on Sunday, which is essentially blowing it on an easy course like that. There are things you just have to accept getting beat. I'm okay getting beat on guys that I just don't know anything about. If I have data and I get something wrong, that's when I criticize myself. As a data person, if I simply don't have data on somebody, then I can go to sleep, more comfortably saying, well, it was a true unknown. It was a true unknown. Could I go and research? Absolutely. There are 24 hours in the day. I do have to sleep at some point. So let's come back to Excel here real quick. We'll make this Colin Morkawa lineup for you. Chesson Hadley. That's what I got for you. I mean, he's only 3% ownership. I'm not going to use him, but good form. I don't know if I agree with that. Great. Now I got to go back to Fantasy National. I apologize that the view is a little rough on this. Let's see. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I got to change it back. Chesson Hadley. Form good. 27th at the Shriners. 45th at the Santa. I mean, he's 2 for 2 in making cuts. But he missed the cut at the Fortinet. Missed the cut at the Northern Trust. He did top 15 at the Wyndham, but, I mean, he's generally been a good putter. I'll give you that. And his approach game's okay. His off-the-tee game is getting better. I don't think I can agree with you on the recent form. I just don't think I can. Yeah. But if you think it's a putting week, by all means, he's at 3%. He's at 3% ownership, but yeah, yeah. Let me bring up Excel. We've been going for quite a bit. I do need to wrap this up eventually. So let me give you a couple more possible lineups. And again, it's really, really hard to avoid this chalk. Andrew, hey Bruce, how you doing, man? Andrew Putnam. He's not rating out well, but it is somebody that I looked at earlier in this week. He was popping on a few of the statistics that I was kind of looking at. He does actually play the par fives pretty darn well. His approach game is okay. The worrisome part for me for Putnam, and I'll switch back one more time because I'm now curious on why he rated out so low when it was somebody I was looking at early in the week. Andrew Putnam. What price is he? I can't remember. He's not down here. Putnam. He's not up that high either. There he is. All right, Andrew Putnam. You're coming off a really good week at the Shriners. Missed the cut at the Sanderson Farms. Like, generally, he's been a good putter, and it's been going a little bit sideways. He's decent with his irons. If this is an off the tee kind of week, and I don't know if it is or not, I don't think it will be, then that weakness is mitigated for sure. Yeah. What I'll say is I'm lukewarm on it. He's certainly better than I thought maybe the 48th or whatever he was in my data model was. I think there are better options at the price point is what I'm going to say. So let me bring back Excel here real quick. So at the price point at 6,700, I have, there was somebody that was right at 6,700. Where'd he go? Well, 65, like Chan Kim has played pretty darn well in these no-cut style events. I mean, he's made the cut in Open Championships and such. I can't get enough of Kyle Stanley this week. I really can't get enough of Kyle Stanley this week. He's at 9% ownership. He's the third best iron player in the field this week. Hits his greens even when he doesn't hit the fairway. Plays these par threes of the length very good. He just plays par threes in general pretty well. And this is a par 3 course. For those that don't know, this is a par 70, but you have 5 par 3s and 5 par 5s. It's a very weird layout. 34 going out, 36 coming in. I just like Kyle Stanley a lot. He gives himself opportunities. Like this is the makings of a lineup here. Like I've gone as low as starting at Joaquin Neiman. If you're really trying to avoid the entire top, with the big four, these three plus Hideki. If you're really trying to be unique and avoid the top four, because all of these guys are at 20, almost 21+% ownership, and Johnny Vegas as well is at 21%, which I hate because Johnny Vegas is number 1 in my rankings. Yada yada yada. I've been starting with Joaquin Neiman, and I haven't been disappointed with the lineups, but certainly it lacks the star power. I mean, what's the winning upside of Joaquin Neiman? I would argue it's quite a bit lower than at least these three and probably Matsuyama. Recent par 3. So I can sort here. And this is all par 3s for the last 36 rounds. It's all par 3s. Let's sort. Shoot. Let me make sure I get everything here. Sort. Why do I do this? Sort. Include. All right. Well, Johnny Vegas is going to have to just stay at the top because it's not cooperating. Just know that he is, yeah. Data, sort, what column is this? F. Why is it doing this? A, C, D, E, F, 20th. By largest, or smallest to largest. All right, so the top par 3 scores, and again, I apologize, Excel is acting up. Number 1, Alex Noren. 2, Mackenzie Hughes. 3, Joaquin Neiman, who I really like this. Ricky Fowler, Will Zalatoris, Chris Kirk, Luke List, Tommy Fleetwood, Keegan Lonto Griffin. And again, just because of the conditional formatting, just know, I don't know how long you've been here, Bruce. Paul Casey has withdrawn. And those cells are hard-coded conditional formatted in Excel, so whenever I sort, it throws it out, or it throws off the conditional formatting. But there's your par 3 scorers, or at least the best that have been in the last 36 rounds. Noren, okay, all right. I really don't like Mackenzie Hughes. There are reasons to like him. It's just I only had him start because he was the top 30 of whatever, 75 entries or whatever. I do like Neiman a lot this week. I've talked a little bit about Ricky. I'm starting to believe again in Ricky. The fact that he was, competitive says a lot. His putter did betray him a little bit on Sunday. I just think there are better options, especially at 9,800. Like, give me all of Joaquin Neiman over Ricky Fowler. Is how I'm phrasing that. Will Z, Chris Kirk, Luke List. Luke List always scares me because of the putting. He just scares me because of the putting. I've mentioned Tommy Fleetwood. Like, if you're looking for uniqueness, if you're willing to take the risk on Tommy Fleetwood, go for it. I don't know if I can get there, but I really do think he's better than the 45th that I have in my rankings. I like Keegan this week. Griffin's okay. There's Chesson Hadley for you. Hickok, somebody else. There's your Kinoshita that you mentioned. So yeah, Kyle Stanley. So let's go down here at the bottom. Hoagie, Siwoo, somebody I'm really off on this week. Kanaya, Jones, Sung Kang, Matt Wallace, Todd Tringali, somebody I liked. For whatever reason, Colin Morkawa rates 55th in par 3s. You wouldn't think that because he's such a prolific ball striker. I think this is more akin to the putting woes that Colin Morkawa has historically had. Certainly he can go out and make his fair share of putts, and obviously he's going to win tournaments. But generally speaking, and he's gotten better, but generally speaking, Colin Morkawa is not a very good putter, and that probably is speaking a little bit to why his par 3 scoring is as low as it is, even though he's the best ball striker in the world, best at par 4s, best at par 5s just because he's such a good iron player. Again, I think this is just more speaking to his putting woes. But it is something to keep in mind on Morikawa. Grace, pretty bad. Hideki. So, yeah. But now that you've said this 4 top 10s in the past 5 events, and now he's at the top of close to the top of the list in par 3 scoring. Oh. Yep. Put a star next to Kinoshita for me. You just added 1 player to my player pool, Darnell. Hey, next week, if he doesn't play well and you're not in chat, yep, it's gonna be. So we're running quite a bit long. It's already been an hour and 40 minutes. Let me wrap up this very, very unique lineup, and but if he does, I'll make sure to give credit where credit is due, because I had no information on him. Let's finish this somewhat unique lineup, and then I'll have to stop it here because, like I said, it's been going on for quite a while now. which reminds me, guys, I have a pretty exciting announcement. I've mentioned it a couple of times, especially this week. On October 31st, make sure you tune in. I just have something exciting for all of you, especially my subscribers. So make sure you tune in for that. October 31st, which is the initial research show of a tournament. I don't know which one it is yet. But let me finish this one real quick. Joaquin Neiman, Kyle Stanley has kind of been my top and the bottom here. I've mentioned how I like. Now you've got me all sorts of messed up. Let me sort this by my ranking, not by par 3. Third. There we go. All right, so Neiman, Stanley. Again, I really like Chris Kirk this week. Doug Gim. Doug Gim is somebody I was really on with. And Darnell, you and I seem to be on the same page there. There's a lot to like about Doug Gim this week. I like Pat Perez this week, but you see here I've got 9,400, so I could take one of the upper end guys and eat a little bit of chalk there. More than likely, what I would do, I would eat my chalk on Johnny Vegas just because he's number one in my statistical model, and I still have 9,900. Someone else that I've kind of gravitated towards. I don't mind Carlos Ortiz this week. I really don't. Again, that international feel should putt pretty. I mean, look here. He's number one strokes gained total on Paspalum greens. For what that's worth. Again, these internationals are going to have a lot of exposure to these Paspalum greens. And where it's just not common stateside. It's just not. McNealy is okay. He's at 15%, which is a little high for my liking. Yes, he is ninth. The fact that he's ninth, overcoming the relative lack of skill with his irons, at least compared to the field, is promising. Absolutely. I mean, the best at the range of par threes. Good on these short courses. Very good on these short courses. Good hitting greens when he doesn't hit the fairway. He's just. I'll have some McNealy. Don't get me wrong. 15% is a bit high for me. It really is. Considering at 9,300, 9,400, if I get one more, I like Keegan quite a bit more than McNealy, even though they're so close in my rankings. And somebody else I like is Grillo, just that international feel. He has played Paspalum greens. I know. Grillo, has not a lot of bad stats going. I mean, he's very good on these short courses, like McNealy. He's very good when he's hitting greens when he misses the fairway, like McNealy. He gives himself a lot of opportunities. I like Grillo this week. Guys, I would love to go on and on. You all got me rambling and ranting on data and all this stuff, and I love it. I really do. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support, but I do need to try to keep these shows somewhat within reasonable time limit, because I could talk about data and such all day. But guys, again, I really do appreciate the support, the chat, the banter. Like I said, Darnell, if I use Kinoshita and he comes through, I told you all along. But if he doesn't do well, then I told you so as well. That's how it's gonna. I'm kidding. I'm messing with you. So I'm definitely gonna have to start at least use him periodically just to see how it goes. But guys, again, thanks for tuning in. If you did, if you weren't live, reach out to me on social media. The links are in the description. Or comment below. I will absolutely see them because I'll be pretty darn active since the tournament doesn't start until 7:30. Again, adjust your schedules accordingly. The tournament will start, so make sure you have your lineups in by say 7 p.m. Eastern. I might advocate just doing it a little bit beforehand just to make sure. But I will be certainly grinding through making as many lineups as I can all day tomorrow, so I will make sure I'm reachable, social media and comments and such. But guys, again, thanks for tuning in. For all your bets this week at the Zozo, for all of your lineups at the Zozo, may all your bets be profitable.